when things got hard, she knew I would push her to be better. Well, if we wanted to make it, she knew she had to do that to me. And I gave her that permission. I said, hey, look, I want you to break me down. Tell me when I'm doing something that's not right. Or if I said I was going to do this and my actions aren't showing, call me out on it. Tell me. I might not like it. I may push back, but I know when I walk away and I think about it for, 20 minutes or an hour, or maybe it takes me a day.
I get you're right. I'm sorry.
Because when ego leaves the equation, then you can start changing.
You have to step away from it for a second, though, and let yourself actually process what was said.
I always wanted
someone's attacking you.
I didn't want an alpha and a submission. I wanted alpha. Yes. Like, let's go together and let's do this together.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Solid Podcast. Today, episode 37. Brandon and I today have our guests, Chris and Kayla Tocco, and you're going to get so much out of today. I'm so excited for you to listen to today's podcast. I hope you have a pen and a paper and you're ready to take some notes, because there are going to be so many practical applications that you can take and really go change your life regardless of where you're at. So if you guys can remember, please like, subscribe, and comment. Share this with a lot of people. It's going to change a lot of people's lives. And thank you again for plugging in and listening to the podcast today. And remember, stay solid.
I enjoy health and fitness, and I actually, after racing, I went to school to be an athletic trainer. I would do all the taping and, pregame stuff and postgame ice stuff and all the take care of the athletes. So I always was into like the training for racing. I enjoyed that kind of stuff. So when she was competing and she would get into the science of, macros and all that, we would geek out. But I'm, 200 pounds and she's
But
fit,
knowledge was there.
So it always is there just to get that step to start.
Yeah.
I just finally said, all right.
So what do you think? Because obviously, to go back, I mean, you'd been an athlete, right? So what kind of athletics was it that you did? Kind of performance? I know you were a high performer as well. And then maybe how did that end, and why do you think that your I guess habits stopped, or what changed? So give us a little bit of history.
Okay, so going back, I started racing motorcycles. I rode a motorcycle at 4 years old and fell in love with it. I really, really enjoyed it. We did it for
your family
fun.
always do that? Is that why you got into it?
Yeah. I mean, grandparents all the way down. That's just
generational,
what we did.
In the blood.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So I started riding and just enjoyed it. And we would go to the desert or in the backyard or whatever, and I rode. And then my first race, I was 4 years old. So from 4 to about 8 years old, I just was racing locally. And then at 8, I won my first national championship. And when I saw that huge trophy and everyone, cheering, you're a little 8-year-old, and I still remember how I felt. So that's all I did. All I wanted to do from there until I was 26. That's all I did. And I did the whole amateur national scene, traveled to Tennessee and Oklahoma and Florida and all across the U.S. just competing, won multiple national titles. And it's a high-performing, one of the most physically demanding sports. So at about 12, 13 was when I really started taking it serious. That's what I wanted to do. I had idols and, guys I looked up to.
Who were those guys?
The first few were like Jeff Matasevich, Jeremy McGrath. Then as I got older, like Ricky Carmichael and those guys, when you really were in the grind of, 15, 16, where you're on the edge of making it or not.
Yeah.
You're always looking at who's the guy.
Carmichael wasn't that much older, right?
Just a few years. Yeah. So as we were racing nationals, I was in like the 50 class. He was 60s, and I was on 60s, and he was on 80s. So I always watched. James Stewart, like I raced with James a few times. Right as he was going pro, he jumped kind of a couple levels, and I was a couple years older than him, and so we raced his last amateur year. We raced a lot together.
Awesome.
So I got into training, and then I really fell in love with not just racing, but the training side of it too. I cycled a lot and did a lot of endurance type stuff. I loved climbing. I'd get on a road bike, and I loved finding climbs.
It's always my favorite thing to do, man. I love climbing the canyons.
He lived in the mountains, so.
Yeah, I grew up. I would cycle from about 4,000 feet to about 6,500 feet.
It's the best ever.
And you just see like one or two cars, the whole time you're there. Yeah. So fell in love with the training side of it, the nutrition side. We didn't have like the internet or Google or anything like that, so I couldn't find meal plans and stuff. So I had to figure it out on how I felt and performance and charting my split times and how I felt and how I performed that day.
It's probably better in some ways to do it that way, right? Because you're going off of your actual performance versus what someone's telling you to do.
Right. Here's A to Z of what you should eat, and then here's how you should train. It was like, okay, I think this is what I should do, and I think this is what I should eat. And then you would get kind of geeked out and find how it all worked and how you felt. And so I've always been into the physical fitness side of racing too. And then I had a lot of injuries towards the end of racing. Starting when I was 15, I broke both my ankles. That was pretty
tough. At the
same
time? Or?
Yeah.
Wow.
Had to eject and landed feet first. And 15 years old, laying on the side of the track with 2 broken ankles.
Oh,
couldn't get my driver's license till I was like almost 17, like 16 and a half. So a lot of that stuff happened. And then after 15, 16, 17, 18, it was compounding. So from when I started at 4 years old racing till 15, I really never got hurt, and I was just winning everything. Then you're on the cusp of making it or not as a professional. Then I started getting injured, and then you're chasing to get back to your speed, back to your fitness, and sometimes you make a mistake, or I had bike problems, or another rider or whatever.
Push yourself a little bit too hard, didn't quite heal all the way.
So then that was mentally hard to overcome, because you're watching these guys you beat, achieving what you can achieve while you're sitting on the couch healing. Mm-hmm. So from when I was 15 till I was 23, I broke over 20 bones and had, I think, 7 or 8 orthopedic surgeries, and then concussions, and I was always known as like one of the smoothest riders, and it was just a big mistake.
Yeah.
And it was long periods of time with no major problems, and then one big one, whether it was bike or myself.
You get forgotten in the industry very quickly too.
Absolutely.
There's always another rider coming
with
up.
A lot of pressure. There's always somebody behind you ready to take your spot, right?
Yeah. So then that was, I'd come back, get injured. Then finally I was 2004. I broke my femur in Texas after having a major shoulder problem. I was out for 6 months, had a labrum and rotator cuff tear that took 6 months. One of the hardest injuries I had to overcome. The very first national, I was healthy to race, broke my femur, and it was like you're on the edge. I was 22 or 23 and just sitting on the side of the track with a broken femur. I said, all right, that's kind of it. I'm done. And I remember, having that real moment of this injury after injury and the age, it's just not going to happen. So
a broken femur is not an easy thing to come back from.
Yeah. Right? And that, so we were in the hospital in Texas for a week, and that was kind of the thing that kept happening. So, got finished with the career and met a lot of great people. I mean, I've learned a ton. It's built my character, I'm seeing it even now, and even raising our son Landon, with him getting into sports and overcoming, the adversity that he's learning. And I don't regret any of it, even all the injuries and stuff, because, you twist an ankle now and it's like, that's not a big deal. I've been a little worse than that. So then after that, I ended up running heavy equipment, building tracks. So I stayed in the industry for a while and, running tracks, and my buddies that continued racing had facilities that they would build to have their private training facilities, building the supercross and the motocross tracks. And then I actually got, we won the bid to build the 2008 and 2009 Glen Helen National for one of the outdoor national stops. So that was pretty cool to if you can't like race it and be the athlete, at least build the track and put it on for the event. Cool. So that was pretty cool.
It's pretty cool because you can still go to the track. We take Landon for like little 50 races, and you can still see the mountain that he cut out and put in and stuff.
Yeah, awesome. You look up the hill and say, "Daddy cut that out," and the racers. Then you show them pictures or video, or you go on YouTube and you can see the national. I said, "Daddy built all this stuff."
Right on.
Yeah. So that's cool. At least I have that to have an accomplishment in the industry.
Yeah.
Then just, got into kind of normal life. We met in 2006. We were running heavy equipment, my brother and I, and it had rained for like a week straight. So we couldn't push mud around. So we just let it dry. And she worked in an indoor go-karting facility. She was a bookkeeper. And she happened to ring me up the first time we went and raced. And I was like, wow, she's pretty cool. And I kept going back. And then after
2 hours to go racing.
Yeah, we weren't close to this. So I'm like, I think that girl's working. I want to go say hi. Yeah. So then we went out to
well, first he asked me how old I was.
I was like,
He's like, yes.
That was the first thing before I asked her number. How old are you? She's like, 18.
Because how old were you at the time?
23.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, we can make this work. So we went to the movies and we went to dinner and a movie one night, and that was it. I've been with her ever since.
Awesome.
18 years. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, so she's been through
a lot of the ups and downs.
A lot of that.
The athletic side of it.
So what did you think of him when you first met him?
I thought he
Was it a good first impression?
It was, yes. Yeah. He kept coming. I'm like, And it's funny because him and his brother, they would like joke around like, oh, I'm going to ask for her number. Or I'm going to ask for her number. And one time I'd be working and we're going to come down and race. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm off in like 30 minutes, but I'll hang out for a little while and wait for you guys. And then they never showed up. And I went and found him on MySpace because we hadn't really started talking at that point. And I went and I like blew up his DMs. Like, I waited around for an hour after MySpace. Yeah. I waited around for an hour for you to show up, and you never showed up. And I could have been at home. And thank goodness he is who he is, because if anybody else probably would have been like, who's this chick? Like, I'm blowing up my DMs already. And it turns out he had no clue. It was just going to be his brother coming down. And I thought he was coming, and I'm like, okay, well, he wasn't part of that, and I just embarrassed the heck out of myself. So. But he kept coming around.
Yeah, I still took her out to dinner.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But he just accepted me for who I was right away, and you just get like that sense with somebody, and you just kind of know like it's home. And
it was one date, and that was it. And never
looked back.
Never went on a date or met anyone else.
And I was late to our first date to my own house. So.
I really accepted her for who she is.
You did. There you go.
Well, that's changed because you were super early today.
That's all him.
Yeah.
He helped me a lot with that.
I'm very structured, and I like to plan things out. So I with Landon and her, I was like, okay, I'll be the lead here and get everything in order and keep the house in order, and then we'll go. So that's kind of that's been my strength. I think, but it goes back to racing because you got to plan, parts and gear and travel and all. So that's kind of stuff's been ingrained in me for forever. Yeah. It's just that very structured and plan everything.
Yep.
Awesome. So you finish racing, you start building tracks, you guys meet, and I know we met in Vegas. So you guys, you were living in California?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so what was it, in 2006 you guys meet? What was happening between 2006 and 2011 when we
That's
met?
when he was building the tracks. We were together while he built the tracks.
Okay.
When we first started dating, that was when I was building tracks. And I mean, we would travel. We built tracks in Costa Rica and Australia and all over the U.S. and a lot of fun stuff that we were able to do while we were getting to know each other and making good money and doing some fun stuff. And it ended up helping our relationship because we could travel around and do stuff. And she was like, hey, this is cool. And it was just something different than I think she had ever really experienced. She has the kind of the normal upbringing of high school and all the same normal kind of upbringing, and I was completely different. So I think that was something that she liked too, to experience something completely different than what she was used to.
Where do you guys think you gained? Because both of you are pretty disciplined today. Mm-hmm. Is that something that was programmed early on in both of your lives, or like what was your childhood like? Work
ethic was programmed really early on for me. I was the quintessential firstborn child. You know, I'm going to get straight A's, and I'm a people pleaser. And
Yep. How many siblings?
just one little brother. He's 3 years younger than me. And it was just always, I want to make my parents proud. I'm going to do what I need to do. I was the first person in my family to go to college. That was a huge accomplishment. So I don't know. My dad taught me a very good work ethic.
What did your parents do?
So my dad was an equipment rigger for Boeing. And he would drive from Corona to El Segundo every day, which was like 2.5 hour drive to commute back and forth.
One way?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Traffic.
It's like going from
on the 91, just bumper
think
to
of
bumper.
like Ontario International Airport basically to LAX is where he worked. So that distance, long
Crazy.
drive every day in traffic.
Yeah.
Dang.
But he did what he had to do to take care of his family. And I just saw that and was like, okay, I'm going to do. And he just always wanted me to get an education and do what I wanted to do. And so that's what I did.
And so you graduated high school, went to college, you got a degree. What'd you get a degree in?
Accounting.
Okay.
So that's what actually I do now. I'm not a CPA, but I do accounting for charter schools.
It's like high level accounting.
Very high level. It's very stressful.
She's definitely the.
But I'm good at it. So
No, she busts her butt, man. She's
awesome.
But I feel
She's
like
good at what she
my
does.
discipline is, I don't know, just kind of is there for me, but not with everything. You know, like there's certain things that you can be. I have to fight to be disciplined on a lot of the fitness stuff, even though I love it, and because you get so busy with everything else, right? That you're tired. You just don't want to do it. And so it's always been a battle. So I won't say that it's like ingrained in me to be disciplined, but it's ingrained in me to not like go long without being disciplined.
Have you always been in the fitness? Has that always been a priority?
No, I don't even consider myself, I look fit, right? But I'm a bodybuilder. We're not really fit. We look fit. But no, I was always that person that kind of just did the fad diets and things like that. And then I met Kelsey, and me and her started working out a lot together and stuff.
The P90X stuff, just kind of that fad stuff in the beginning when she was just kind of learning. You know?
And, you know, so I always liked it and liked the idea of it, but you never really wanted to do the full work of what you had to do to achieve a certain look. And I actually didn't really get into the fitness side of it until after I had our son. And I dropped the baby weight, but your body doesn't look the same. And I'm like, I don't feel good about myself.
I remember that conversation. She's like, hey, I want to do this competition. I'm like, okay, well, tell me about it. And she told me, and I'm like, she was the Turbo Jam P90X.
They called me Turbo Kayla.
Just try doing what she thought she needed to do to get in shape or lose baby weight, or, you know, as you grow, your metabolism changes, and you can see she wanted to be skinny and fit and like go to the beach and feel good about herself. But then to show me this is what I wanted to do, and she's not the most competitive.
I'm not a competitive person.
She's very academic and business competitive. But if you say, let's run a mile, she's like, okay, I'll make the mile, but I'm not going to compete. Like, so when she said that I want to get on stage, I'm like, wow,
that's
who
an
is
important
this?
distinction for him. He's right.
It was
I'm
really
not
cool.
competitive.
She's very competitive
in athletic, but I'm a very competitive person, and I'll do this better than you, and I'll do, you know.
Okay.
It just depends on what I'm competing at.
Yes.
But,
Playing board games, like she doesn't let our son win anything.
Oh, no.
Like we don't let him win.
Builds his character.
I like that.
We
he
played.
does not like
My
that.
wife always gets mad at me because I never let my boys win, and I'm like, why do I let them win?
Yeah.
They get
That's how I am.
Fair and square.
Yeah, so there's areas she's competitive in, and there's some where she's really competitive.
So I started lifting weights and stuff, but a friend had mentioned, you know, you should compete, and I was like, what's that? And then they showed me a picture of somebody on stage, and I'm like, yeah, right. That's not me. There's no way I can do that. And my New Year's resolution that following year, it's the only New Year's resolution I've ever made and actually followed through with it. And it was to push my comfort zones that year. And so January rolled around, and I saw that there was one in July. Kelsey had already done hers. And so I signed up because there's no refunds. So I was like, well, I got to do it now.
Pay the fee, and you're in.
You're in.
Did it basically without a coach and just kind of
So no
figured it
coach?
out. No
No,
coach.
no
I did
kidding.
it all
Learned it all
myself.
herself.
Yeah, I had
Dang.
friends that built a workout program and stuff for me that I followed.
YouTube on how to pose, and she would
I
do
watched
it
a
in the
lot of
living
YouTubers.
room, and I
Holy
would
cow.
watch, and I'd say, no, you got to be this way, watch her. And we just kind of teamed up, and she put in all the work, obviously, but I would, you know, kind of help with the YouTube stuff and
That's
watch
impressive.
videos.
I got on stage and I forgot my routine, and I was like, oh yeah, and then I'm like. And I got out. He thought I was gonna be like crying, and I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, I thought
wanna
it
do
was
that
going
again.
one way or the other. It was either I want to do this or I hate this and I screwed up and I feel horrible.
Yeah.
And
But
I've
she
never
got off
looked
stage
back.
with a huge smile, and she's done.
And what
6 or
year was
so.
that?
Landon was born in 2015, so that would have been July of 2016.
Okay, and
So
you
he
loved
was-
it. What was it about it that you loved, being on stage?
Yeah, I can't even explain it. I think it's knowing that you put in all this work and you created this and you get to display it and be proud of what you displayed, no matter like what the turnout was, right? Everybody up there put in so much hard work, and I did too, and I belong up here.
Yeah.
You know, I got last, but I didn't look like I didn't fit in, right? Like
Yep.
I did just as
You were
much
proud
work.
of the result.
Yeah, exactly. And like,
awesome.
you learn
The
to like
effort
love
behind
like what you had to do. And I've never been somebody that like felt like I could do hard things.
Yeah.
And knowing that like I was getting up at 4 a.m. and going and doing my cardio and my lifting and following everything. I didn't know a lot back then in terms of the sport, but
Because in addition to that, you still had a full-time career.
I had a full-time job. I worked for a law firm. I was the bookkeeper for them. And then I was a new mom trying
Yeah.
to juggle all that. And
Yeah.
that's actually why I started going to the gym at 4 a.m. because at the time, Landon would be, if I went after work, by the time I got home, he would be in bed. But when I would leave for work, he would still be sleeping. So if I was going after work, I was never going to see him. So I was like, well, then I'm going to get up at 4 and go because you have to sacrifice to some extent. It's just the nature of it, of anything.
Yep.
But I'm not going to sacrifice it so much that I don't see my family because it's important to me and I love it, but it's not that worth it. Like I will give that up if my family is hurting. And so I've taken steps back, and gone a year or two without even thinking about competing and then get back on it because I love it. And I promise myself that as long as it makes me happy, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And what does that do for your belief level and what you're capable of, right?
Absolutely.
When we do things that we're like, man, no one else would be willing to do this. I did it. And then it carries, I just think fitness carries into everything in life.
It does.
Absolutely.
Fitness,
It
diet,
does.
discipline, it's all goes together.
And you get very, what's the word? You don't want to hear people's excuses. You're like,
Right.
I did it.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. Like, I didn't say it wasn't hard.
Sure.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
belief.
It was hard.
You know, if I can do it and I know
Absolutely,
the
it was
process
hard.
that anybody else can do this exact same thing.
You just have to be honest with yourself on how bad do you really want it. You like the idea of it, or are you willing to put the work in? It's fine if you just want the idea of it, but be honest with yourself about
Yeah.
it.
It's
Don't
powerful.
sit here and then complain that you can't achieve it because you can. You're just not willing to do it. And that is okay.
Sure.
But you can't say that you want to do that then.
Sure.
Right. That's
Yep.
awesome. So during
Very
this
good.
time between 2016 and till now, Chris, had you been putting on weight this whole time?
So so I worked the business with my dad for a period of time, and we just kind of butted heads. We're very similar. Kind of leave it there, right? Like I had some great.
You don't look anything like him at all.
I think I look more like him now that I dropped 50 pounds. You can actually see what my face is supposed to look like, right? So, working the business had its challenges. But in 2014, racing motorcycles, when I would get injured, I would race RC cars. And the gas powered like $2,000-$3,000 cars that, these things are high levels. My buddy actually has been racing professionally. It's an actual sport. This guy's been making over $100,000 a year for the last 15, 20 years, racing RC cars, traveling the world. So I found a piece of property on Sunset and Vegas Boulevard right across the street from the airport. And I was like, I'm going to open an RC track because it was similar to the motocross with the jumps and that. But it was something I can build in Vegas. So from 2014, I just found the property, built the track, and did everything. I had a partner, and financed and helped and funded it, and built that. I hosted some of the biggest RC races ever. I hosted the 2016 World Championships. We had 42 countries attend over a 9-day
huge.
period.
awesome.
And you
How
couldn't
big is this track?
It was 100 feet width by 200 wide.
Okay.
And then
But the
you're up
property was
on
big.
it's called a driver stand,
So you
where
can see.
you're way up on these containers, like ocean containers, and then we built the structure with all the ADA compliant ramps, and it was covered, and it had the announcing
How
announcing
big was
tower.
the property?
About 3 acres.
Okay.
So right where the go-karts and the Vegas, the
You know the
tailor-made.
Sports Center?
I know
that
exactly where
whole-
it's at. Yeah.
It was part of the Sports Center.
So we had like the pit area, but I'm very detailed, and I had it landscaped and cement
It was
walkways,
gorgeous.
and it was like one of the top 3 tracks in the world. And then so we hosted that, the World Championships. We did national championships. I had a race called the Silver State that brought in 500 entries every year in March, and we'd host that. So that was a big accomplishment for me personally, because it was something that I took a piece of land and built and
built a business.
Created it from my vision and all my experience and everything. And I mean, down to the color of the driver's stand, and I built the tracks and built it from scratch. So
I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Do those cars actually last longer than like 2 months? Like my boys' little Trax cars, they always break.
Yeah, you have to work on them. That's the hardest thing. Is you
maintenance.
can't just give them to a kid and say, go bash them in the field and expect them to
They're
run.
like a mini car.
It's, go take our street cars and go hammer them out into the field and see how long they last without taking them to the shop and working on them. Same thing.
Yeah.
I
Just
mean,
curious.
yeah, no.
I'm always like, why are we going to buy him another car?
Anything with a battery, we're not buying again.
We bought so many cars.
They're money pits, man. There's sometimes guys would show up with these cars and it was worth more than the car that they drove in on, and it was like all they had. It was like,
unbelievable.
So it's a crazy sport. So doing that had some challenges. My partner and I started not really seeing eye to eye. We didn't know each other before, which learning experience to kind of know your partner before you sign a contract. So over from 2014 to 2017, we had great success, big race to big race, but the economy in Las Vegas was hard to sustain between those and keep the business afloat. It broke even for a long time and did okay. But then the sports center had an investor wanting to come in and build a water park. They were supposed to have this like crazy water park on the property. Everyone was to vacate. And so they gave us our 90 days and we shut the track down, and they were offering to move us. But when you build something that I built like that, I was like, I'm not going to duplicate this anywhere else. The backdrop was the Vegas Strip. I mean, you can go online, RC Tracks Las Vegas, and it's like, you can see some of the races and stuff. It was pretty cool. So
sweet.
I didn't really have any interest in doing that again. And that was a hard one to swallow, like 5 years of, all on my shoulders to build it. After, the business, working with my dad and having our kind of, not wanting to work the business anymore, then building something big and then having it kind of taken away, was hard for me to mentally, kind of overcome. We had a year, our Landon was a year old. So learning to be parents, she was kind of getting burned out on her job. She was getting into the fitness industry, wanted to quit her job and build a fitness coaching, so there was a lot of changes, and I always wanted to be the provider. And I always wanted to be the one that I'll put it on my shoulders. And then if you want to do something on the side, go for it. But when my track got taken away from me, my business that I built got taken away from me, it was harder for her to go after what she wanted to do. And it started to weigh on me. Kind of like got financially and some, weren't making money. Weren't making enough.
You maybe felt like you weren't providing your part of the role in the marriage.
Absolutely. It was my desire. She supported me, but it was my desire to move us to Vegas and, get to know my dad and the family and all that, and then work with my dad and then build this new business on my own, because I wanted to do something myself. And then have it not really go well. We ended up moving back to California to start over. And I sold all my toys, sold my road bike, my motorcycles, and just to fund the move. And
take step back to step forward.
Yeah, and it was a hard pill to swallow for a man.
Yep.
Because we ended up moving in with my mother-in-law in an 8x8 bedroom. I remember, trying to make it as nice as I could. I went in and painted it and vacuumed and did steam clean the carpets and tried to make it nice, because we moved from a nice home to, spare bedroom. But then we went to work. So,
what year was that?
2017.
We moved back to California on my 30th birthday.
Yeah. So then it was like I moved her back, like literally boxing our truck up and driving on her 30th birthday. So that was another man, this, I felt it.
Yeah.
Then I had the opportunity to take over as president of Pole Position in Southern California. So that was kind of like sell everything move in with her mom.
Which, for clarification, is the go-kart race we met at when I was 18.
The karting. So,
and weren't you working for Pole Position for a while too, Kayla?
Yeah, so I started with them in 2005 as their bookkeeper, and I helped open the Murrieta location in California. I helped open the Oklahoma location. I helped open the Las Vegas location. And then I did the books for all of them, plus the franchise holder company.
Okay.
And then when we moved here, I just changed my office to the Vegas location, and I would go back and forth to California. But at the time, remote work wasn't really remote work, what it is now. And so to do the books from afar like that, when all of the books were in Murrieta, it was just too hard.
Yeah.
And that's when I ended up leaving. But I stayed in contact with the owners because they kind of helped make me who I was in accounting, you know.
Yeah.
So
you had a great relationship.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they would visit Vegas when we lived there, and we would get together. So we maintained a good relationship.
This positive relationship ended up being a great opportunity.
Oh,
for
absolutely!
you
It
guys in the
saved us
future.
really. We went from struggling in Vegas, moving in with her mom. She was managing Pole Position. It was a 2-level business, so like upstairs was another business that we ran that I'll get to. But I took over as president. She was managing. And we have a 3-year-old, no babysitter, running around. Here's some quarters. Before we'd open, he'd ride his little Strider around, the go-kart track, and he would help me turn the lights on. And it was just me and her running the show, and Landon just playing with all the arcade and stuff. So
awesome.
So we were doing that, probably 60 hours a week each, and then upstairs. A side business from the guys at Pole Position. They started Fixate Rings, which is a silicone ring company.
Yeah.
So then I was doing all the operations.
I don't
all
have
the
mine on,
shipping.
but I actually have some.
I think we gave them to you, didn't we?
I still have it today.
I use them when I work out still.
Is that one there?
Yeah. So I would do all the operations, all the packaging and the shipping and engraving. Like, you'd have messages people would want to put. So I was doing that upstairs, and then she was running the finances for the company upstairs. Then we'd finish our duties there, go downstairs. I mean, we were putting in like 160-hour work weeks.
Between the two of us,
just busting it, just getting ourselves back. And we got back pretty quick. We ended up staying with her mom for 1 year to the day.
So what was your mindset during that time? I mean, I think because there's a lot of people that go through this. They have this idea of who they want to become. They start on that journey. It doesn't go the way they want it to go. And they're not willing to make the sacrifice to take a step back, Kayla, as you said, to take multiple steps forward. What was your mindset? I mean, what were you thinking during that time that caused you were willing to put in obviously all this effort to get back on your feet, start moving forward, progress? I mean, what was the mindset? What were you thinking? Did you have goals? What was driving this effort?
At first, it was just survive again, to make it, to get on our feet again. Then once we got into, okay, here's our plan, we're actually able to afford our lifestyle again and progress. I had some mental blocks where it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but it was a vehicle to get me to the next area of life. It was a temporary thing that we had put together, knowing that it wasn't something that we were going to do for 20, 30 years, but it was something we could do for 1 year and really build ourselves. So going from having a lot of fun and did a lot of great things in Vegas and built a great business, and it was kind of pulled out from under us, and then we started over, we didn't really have a choice. So when your back's against the wall, your mindset is just do what you have to do.
Well, I think your mindset is that way, but I would argue to say most people don't have that mindset because most people, right, you see it. We see a lot of people, they get into that situation and
they play victim.
Yeah. I could have.
They look for a bailout from somebody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and we've played the victim card before, and we just knocked ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
You're human.
Exactly.
I think it's okay to do that for a period of time. A day or a couple days.
You're allowed to wallow,
but you
for a
can't.
second.
You can't do that long term because then you become the victim yourself, and you're asking for assistance instead of let me like ho hum myself for a day or two, and maybe go off on my own and say how crappy everything is, and then okay, that's enough. Now it's back to work. So
sit down, make a plan,
because you don't have any other choice. You can either ask for a handout, but that's temporary, or you can try to do it yourself and learn along the way. I mean, we did a lot of things that we learned the hard way.
Not doing it again.
But
Yeah.
I think being parents too, though, because I feel like had we still just been the two of us, our approach may have been a lot different too.
Sure.
But we had to look out for a baby.
It wasn't
now,
about you anymore.
you know, exactly.
It was-
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like we planned any of it to happen. Does anybody ever plan for something like that to happen?
No, and
you know,
we
but-
did it all with no babysitter. I mean, Landon was with us by our side up early. I mean, we actually had to like stop Starbucks because we were looking at.
Does he remember it?
Some of
He
it.
remembers.
Yeah.
He was little, but he remembers riding around the track and.
We
all
tried to
of that
make it
kind of
as
stuff.
cool and fun for him,
Yeah.
not the, mom and dad are in tears every day and fighting. Like we didn't really, I mean, honestly, not to sugarcoat anything, but we don't have the brawling, periods of time where we hated each other in this 18 years. So I'm very, very lucky that
So, because it seems to me, like watching from the outside, it actually probably strengthened
It
absolutely.
did,
You're-
yeah. We fight like
Yeah.
any couple does.
any
but,
any relationship.
but we
Yeah.
work through it
If
together.
someone's not getting along, there's
Yeah.
not two or more people
Yeah.
involved. right?
exactly.
Yeah, right.
So what do you think? Because I think this is important. Because anytime there's struggle, I mean, you could be winning at a high level, right? You could have been making all the money in the world, and there's still going to be struggle, and it doesn't matter if you're having to start over or whatever. So I want to hear about that because I mean I think you guys, and that's why we wanted you on. You guys are the epitome, and I was telling you this, Chris, of what solid is about, right? Building a solid life. You guys have a great marriage. You're great parents. You've had success in multiple areas of life. Watching you lose all this weight recently, and which is awesome to see. But it's a pattern
Right.
in your life. And so what would be some, like, I don't know if they're keys or some reasons that cause you guys to strengthen your relationship during hard times versus a lot of people when they have hard times or they play this victim mentality or whatever, a lot of times it breaks relationships. And we see it happen so often in life. It's that challenge. It breaks up marriages, and it hurts not only the marriage, it hurts their children, it hurts their community, their extended family. And you guys chose to respond in a positive way. So what are some reasons or some things that you guys did or perspectives?
I think from my point of view is we talk a lot. In the morning, we wake up early before our son, and we have coffee together and just talk. I think also we're not afraid to fight. We're not afraid to, we
disagree
have a hard conversation. Even mornings where we're just having a cup of coffee and it kind of turns into your opinion, my opinion. We're not afraid to really like ruffle each other's feathers.
We don't put our heads in the sand.
And when we
avoid our
first
problems.
started dating, that she was afraid to upset me, and I would always tell her, like, we won't make it if you're not afraid to piss me off. Like I may get mad, or we may fight, we may argue. I'll walk away, you walk away, but we'll come back and we'll
Some good wisdom.
hash
How
it
did you
out.
know that so early? I mean, because we were the same way, but I didn't realize it, and Lexi didn't realize it, and so we didn't learn till way later that needed to be happening. So
I think the sport that I was in, you're critiqued daily. My trainer, my riding coaches would always hammer on me, and I had to either learn to take it positive and learn to get better, or it was going to be something that I was never going to succeed at. So when a riding coach would be sitting there in the corner over and over and over again telling me I messed it up, that's how you do it. And then I finally learned that you need someone to break you down sometimes, and you need someone to really push you and tell you what you're doing wrong.
how did that make you feel when he told you that? When he said you need to voice your opinion, you need to
I still
speak up.
struggle with it. With him, I'm comfortable, so it's a little bit easier, but I still struggle. I'm a very non-confrontational person, and I will avoid any kind of confrontation.
What I'm
at
looking
any
for, and
cost.
and let me tell you what I'm looking for, because I think it shows how much he loves you.
Oh, I agree.
Right.
He wants me to be so much better because
Yes.
he sees what I don't see in myself, and I see more of myself than I ever have. But a lot of that is because he's believed in me from the beginning, and I will, not be wanting to do something. I can't do this, and
He doesn't want you to just be the
picking me up.
submissive.
He's
No.
the,
Yeah,
not at all.
he's
Yeah.
gone
Yeah.
at me like when I started prep 2 years ago, there was a day, like I was a weekend, and I told him I was going to get up early and work out that morning, and I didn't. And he went off on me. I changed my schedule around for you so you could go in the morning, and you don't want this bad enough. You don't want, and I was so upset because I got yelled at, you know? And then I sulked for a second. I'm like, okay, well, he's doing that because I told him that I wanted to win my show. I didn't, but I put the work in, but he's yelling at me because I told him I wanted something and then my actions weren't doing it. And he knows that I can do it. And so he's 100% always been my biggest believer. Always.
Well,
like,
when we had first started dating, she had her group of friends, and then she meets the guy, and we're doing different things, and we're off, and her friends were still partying and, you know, the normal teenage, you know, 19, 20. And she was kind of like voicing that she was bummed and that her friends don't call her anymore. And I said, listen, I see what you can be. And she's a 19-year-old girl, right? And I said, listen, I think you have something in you that I want to be around. I said, you keep doing what you're doing and look back where they're at in 10 years and where you're at in 10 years. And we have this conversation all the time because
talk about it, yeah.
Her friends, you know, they're a great group of people, but they're
doing well for themselves, but
normal jobs and do the normal thing. And you see them, you know, working for the weekend and drinking on Saturday, and, you know, where she just put her head down. And, you know, so I always pushed her and believed that she could be something bigger than she saw in herself. And I think that's what really helped each of us. When things got hard, she knew I would push her to be better. Well, if we wanted to make it, she knew she had to do that to me. Mm-hmm. And I gave her that permission. I said, hey, look, I want you to break me down. Tell me when I'm doing something that's not right. Or if I said I was going to do this and my actions aren't showing, call me out on it. Tell me. I might not like it. Mm-hmm. I may push back, but I know when I walk away and I think about it for, you know, 20 minutes or an hour, or maybe it takes me a day.
I get you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because when ego leaves the equation, then you can start changing.
You have to step away from it for a second, though, and let yourself like actually process what was said.
I always wanted
someone's attacking you.
I didn't want an alpha and a submission. I wanted alpha.
Yes.
Like, let's go together and let's do this together. Man. You know,
absolutely.
I never wanted to push her down and say, well, you do the dishes and I'm going to go out. If she earns the living and I take care of the house, or she takes care of the house, or we're both working together, whatever we're doing, it's to benefit our son mostly, to give him the environment that he needs to thrive. But we both do it together, and it's just whatever slack needs picked up, that's what we do.
I think for me too, I want Landon to grow up and see what a successful relationship looks like and what we have to do. And we'll argue in front of him sometimes, and I don't think you should hide that kind of stuff from your kids, you know, especially
if your relationship's healthy.
You're not going to have fist fights in front of your some of those relationships out there.
That was my
Let's clarify.
But I mean, like, our disagreements, right? We're not afraid to disagree in front of him, and because then he can see how we overcome the disagreement. Yeah. But if he has no clue that, oh, my parents had a perfect relationship, no one has a perfect relationship.
Yeah, it's all behind closed doors. He doesn't see conflict and resolution.
What it's like to fight through something and what it means to be in a relationship that's worth fighting through. Yeah. So then he's going to have higher standards when he's going out into the world and looking for his partner.
Yeah,
you know?
Good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you get through all this, it makes your relationship closer, and there comes a point, Chris, where I don't know what happened. You look in the mirror one day, you didn't like it. I mean, describe to us kind of where it leads up, because obviously during this time you'd been gaining some weight. So even though you'd been doing good in other areas of your life, you were letting go in other areas, which probably isn't great for your son to grow up watching his dad be overweight.
No, not at all.
So what is it? What is it that changed, man? I mean,
well, the relationship, honestly, I didn't want us to grow apart. She was getting more into the fitness, and I liked that industry. I like it that it doesn't matter how much money you make, you have to earn it in the gym or training, or I don't care how much money you have. If you hop on a road bike and you get on the street with someone that wants it more, that's poor and broke but has a bigger heart, that kind of stuff, that industry I loved. So when she got more into it, it kind of started sparking that, well, I would watch her train and eat right and do all the right things where I'm over here not doing those things.
And so what were you doing? So Kayla's over here eating, these fitness macro meals, I'm sure, chicken, broccoli,
One of
and
my
rice.
favorite stories was my prep in 2018. The day one of prep. I don't know why you picked me up from the gym. He picked me up from the gym for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. He picked me up and Landon was in the car. And in the gym parking lot, there's a Burger King. And I'm like, I just got off this awesome workout.
She's sweating,
such a
feeling great.
workout. This is awesome. He's like, hey, Landon, want to get Burger King? And they drove to Burger King.
She has to smell the Burger King.
And like crap
He was
food,
testing how tough you
right?
were.
Yeah,
How committed
that
are
was
you?
it.
It's
Yeah,
crap
exactly.
food, but it smells amazing, And I'm like, really? And I looked at him, and don't get me wrong, I don't expect someone to eat the way I eat when I'm on a prep. Like you can live your life, but at the same time, I was like, really? It's day one.
Yeah.
So that
That's
was
funny.
Yeah.
So,
So
Yeah.
as she got more into it, I realized, okay, I'm going to these competitions and I'm the overweight husband, watching her get on stage. And even the guys, there's guys up there that are in amazing shape. And I'm like looking at myself and I'm like kind of pulling the
You're like the
shirt. I'm
epitome of that picture of that fitness girl with the dude from
yeah,
Dubai.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
The egg farmer.
Yeah, right.
Right now, that's
So I just
rolling in
I started feeling worse. I was like, man, I would hate for her to want to go this way and say, well, if you're going to go this way, this isn't going to work. And I didn't want to have that conversation. I didn't want to have the conversation of, I'm taking care of myself. Our son's an athlete now. He's doing baseball and racing motorcycles and racing BMX and, achieving these things he's doing. And yeah, okay, so you had some rough times growing up and racing and all the things that you kind of had success and failures at. Well, now you're letting that just ruin the rest of your life. And I didn't want the conversation of you either need to do this or I'm leaving you. I wanted to be like proactive before that conversation ever even came up. And we never even got close. So in my mind, I was like, that is a possibility. Mm-hmm. So, I got into fishing a lot. I bass fish almost every single day for 3 years. And my buddy that I fished with was retired Navy. So he's, accountable kind of guy. We got along great, fished every day, but I wasn't taking care of myself. Well, she had started 75 hard.
it was my second time.
It was like she had completed it, so I understood what the program was like.
Real quick, sorry to cut you off. In the process, had you used your injuries as excuses?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My left ankle is fused. I had 4 surgeries on it. Since I initially broke it when I was 15, I never broke it again, but had to have 4 surgeries on it. The final one fused it, so I was told I could never run again. Because I have no.
And that was a lie,
There's
huh?
no joint.
It was a lie. We'll get into that in a minute. And that was a life-changing moment for me. So having, broken femur, broken back, shoulder problems, broke both my wrists. I had a lot of injuries that I said, hey, I put in my time in the gym. It was my job. I don't want to do that no more. I can't do these certain things because of X, Y, and Z injuries. But watching her, continue to achieve these things physically. And I knew her when she was 18 and she was not that person. So it's not like she came from an athletic family and that's just how she was bred. She built this herself. So
Good
I'm
job,
watching
Kayla.
her.
Thank you. I'm the bookworm.
Yeah, man, there's like
Books and barbells,
Yep.
right? Isn't that what it is?
The bodybuilding book world.
There you go.
so watching her train her mind to do these hard things that I was like, who is this girl?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was not the person that I married. I'm watching her grow and I wasn't. So she started 75 hard the second time. And I just randomly text my fishing buddy. I'm like, hey, let's get in shape. Let's get through. Let's do this program. Let's commit to it. Would you do it with me? And he's like, I'm in. And I'm like, I know if he said I'm in, that I was in. And we started it. And I was like, I'm not going to try this thing. I'm actually committing to it. I'm doing it. And anything that I've actually set my mind and said, I will do this, like, I'll do it. If I'm wishy-washy, I don't do it. So I just told myself, look, this is something you're doing because your son's starting to see you unhealthy. You're trying to chase them around on your bicycle at the BMX track and you can't keep up with them. So I wanted to feel like I was physically fit to keep up with him, to be on her
I
level.
always asked you not to end up like my dad, too.
Yeah, her
so.
dad had he smoked and drank and
He's
drove
overweight.
back and forth, stressful job. Ended up having a heart attack
On the way home from that commute.
From the commute. So
I
that
was 8 weeks pregnant.
Dang. Did he
And-
live from the heart attack?
no,
Oh,
passed
man.
away.
Didn't
make
So
it
he
home
never
in time.
met our
So
son.
this was a fear
Of
that
hers.
you
Yeah.
had with your husband.
And she's
as well.
kind of watching me do. I didn't
Same thing.
smoke, but I would drink a little
Fast
too
food's the same
much,
thing,
and
dude.
yeah, and just bad habits.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until you start to go the other way, and then you're like, wow, my habits were really bad. So I started 75 hard, also because another close friend, his dad that we raced with. I mean, me and him were competitors from 8 years old till we raced professionally as adults. His dad had a heart attack just out of nowhere. Then my brother was diagnosed with leukemia, all really close to each other. And I was like, man, I've been telling my wife for 7 years now that I was not going to be her father, but I was doing pretty much what her father was doing. Then I'm seeing close friends and family getting sick, dying. So that was a motivator. So I text my buddy, hey, let's do this 75 hard and let's see what it, what it can do for us. And he committed. We went through the program. He actually got food poisoning like a week in, but got right back on it as soon as he could hold down water, and ended up finishing like a week after me too.
Awesome.
So through that 75 hard, you just start developing these habits of, just very simple stuff. 2 workouts. My first 2 workouts for the first couple of weeks was walking on the treadmill in the garage and then walking the lake. And we had like a lake. We'd walk a mile around the lake. I just started really slow. I didn't want to blow myself up right away. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm going to take baby steps because I want to make this a long-term thing, not just 75 days. And then I happened to see you. Hey, Jeff and Kelsey are doing it like a day behind. So it was like you were a day behind me, and then she was 2 days ahead of me. And then my buddy ended up being like a week behind all of us. So it was like a bunch of us back and forth, doing this program. And I started slow. It was just walking. Then it was kind of like, well, what if I actually like built a little workout program and like did half of the indoor walking and lifted some weights? And then what if I start eating a little better and then not drinking for, a month? All that inflammation, my face, like I was always inflamed in my face.
That
Amazing
made the
watching
biggest
those
difference
pictures,
was
huh?
him getting rid of the alcohol. Night
I
and
wish-
day difference.
Yeah, I wish more people, in Utah, we don't have that big of an issue. I don't think most people have as much of an issue in Utah just because of the LDS culture in Utah. But outside of Utah, people don't realize there is absolutely no benefit for alcohol whatsoever. Zero. In fact, it's just horrible for you, right? And just stopping that one bad habit.
Oh, it was
how
a
much
huge
will
flip.
change.
It was cutting out alcohol and adding a gallon of water. I mean, it was like compounded itself with just flushing everything. And I just felt so much better internally, not even physically out, the appearance, but internally, my gut, my intestines, like my throat wasn't burning after drinking. I kind of got drinking as a crutch, and then it just was a habit. Like things were going good. We were making money again. We were doing well for ourselves again, but it just was like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to make a drink or whatever. It just became a habit. So it ended up starting as a crutch and then became just this thing I did.
Yeah.
Well, when I said I was done, I didn't even want it anymore.
Right.
It was just because it was, oh, this is what I do, and I make a drink.
Yeah.
Well, when I said this is what I do, and now I train, and now I drink water. It was just a change in the daily habits. So then I started progressing more and more with, okay, what if I started taking more serious, take my diet more serious. Let's up my training. Now I can't run, but I can walk faster. So I'd start looking at my watch. Okay, what's my walking pace? It's, 15 minutes for a mile or whatever it was. And then I try to cut it down, and I try to walk.
Do you think you started wanting to get better because you started feeling better and you just started feeling like, man, you think your belief level went up, and then you started like seeking progression?
I think he was getting that spark back of what it means to be an athlete.
Yeah.
When
self-competitive.
I had heard Andy Frisella talk about, if you were an athlete and you start this, all that stuff's going to come right back.
Everybody's an athlete. We're humans.
Yeah,
we're
absolutely,
athletes.
absolutely.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
We were, God made us
Absolutely.
as athletes, right?
Yeah. So
Survival.
when those instincts, the desire to get better, I was always very, like we were talking about, there was no Google or no program. You had to kind of figure it out. So I would use split times and things when I was road biking, or, lap times when I was racing. So numbers were always big on, weight and speed and endurance and how, all those things, heart rate. So I started paying attention to all that again, and all those, geeky science stuff when I was racing from the body came back out. So I wanted to like get better and get better and get better. Well, then once I started feeling better, looking better, getting compliments from her, and I wanted to keep going. So then there was a day that kind of changed everything. I remember I was starting to lift weights. My indoor workout was more weight focused. I was more endurance, low body fat, high performing, cardio type stuff. So I started lifting, and I started like seeing little definition here and there. And I was sitting on the counter one morning, and I used my hands to talk to Landon. Like we always sit with him during breakfast, and we have a conversation before he starts school. And I'm doing this with my hands, and mid conversation, he says, "Daddy," I said, "What's up, dude?" He says, "I see you have muscles now." And that just like hit me. And I was like, wow, that comment was, and that same day I had done I was doing my outdoor walk around the lake, and I'm competitive. And you hear like nobody was faster walking than me. Right. But I was told I couldn't run. So I would always hear the pitter patter behind me of people running, and you're like, God, I'm getting past, Well, one day I saw this guy run past me, and he was probably in his mid-60s, great shape. And I watched his stride, and something inside of me said, you could do that. He was up on the balls of his feet and kind of running a little bit different, like shorter steps. And I'm like, I think I could do that. Well, I went around where nobody was and kind of said, okay, run to that pole. And when I was training, before I broke my ankles, when I would train, I loved running. It was something I enjoyed. So I said, okay, run to that pole about 100 feet. And I got up on the balls of my feet and I said, let's do what he did. And I like, whoa, I can run. I was told from 2007, when I had my ankles fused, to 2022 that I couldn't run. And I just ran 100 yards. I ended up running a mile that day.
Good job.
And I was like, I texted my wife, and I'm like, I was like, didn't even want to get home. I'm texting her, I just ran a mile. I can't even, it didn't look pretty, I'm sure, but I did something that I was told I couldn't do. And that just opened.
And you felt amazing afterwards.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And mentally, that was one of the biggest breakthroughs that I had during that first 75 days. Wow. And that just said, okay, if I could do that, what else can I do? And that's when I started. She helped me with learning macros and breaking down the diet and like what foods I liked and didn't like, and what I felt good eating, what I didn't feel good eating, and just built something that worked. And it just started checking boxes and losing weight and wanting it more. And just as you, like you say, as you improve, as you feel better, as you look better, as you like what you see in the mirror, and your son and your wife start complimenting you, it just drives you to keep going more and more. And then we ended up going 90 days.
Yeah.
So we went a little extra. And then I took there was like a 2-week period in between. First Form had a fall challenge. And I ended up signing up for that because I wanted something else to compete in. I did that, and I wanted to really cut down and build. So I said, okay, let's take this 8 weeks and really start pushing weights and lifting heavier and things that I've never done before. Learning what I can and can't do in the gym, modifying deadlifts because my ankle doesn't bend. So when you get down into that where your ankle needs to bend, I had to modify how I stood and
buy a slant board.
I was just going to say, and then Kelsey texted me, hey, Jess said to get a slant board. So we got to get one of those. I haven't got one yet, but I would stand on plates. I'd put plates under my heels. Once you said that, I was like, okay, I'll do that for now.
Yeah.
And just learned how to overcome my limits with injuries and things that I did.
There's always a way.
Yeah. And then, it helped her too, because me living her lifestyle now with the fitness.
Oh, it's life-changing on my end.
It wasn't,
awesome.
it wasn't
doing it
like,
together.
yeah, we have our meals, and I bulk cook everything, and we eat pretty much the same. And then our son sees it. So we'll give him like his little treats and little, waffles with syrup and stuff sometimes, but it's sugar-free syrup. And then he gets like a bowl of rice like we eat, like the rice and the jasmine rice and like the turkey and the chicken, and he'll get some of that, but then he'll get a little bit of his stuff that he likes. So, you know, we've learned to just live the lifestyle now, and it's been, so I was 212 pounds on June 14th when I decided to start 75 hard, and today I'm 160.
Dang.
Dang,
Good
man.
job,
So,
dude.
big
I'm a
difference.
happy wife.
Yeah.
Serious. Well, and I think also, like, you think about that stuff, like one of the things that Kelsey and I have always said, we love to work out together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think hormones has a huge part in it. Like, we underestimate the power of hormones and what it does to our emotions. And when you work out together and you're physically changing, your hormones are also at a peak.
Right.
And when you do that together, there's something special that happens to your relationship.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. So just like our hard times when we went back to square one and started from scratch, those hard times made us even stronger. This next phase of me getting myself fit, living a similar lifestyle physically and mentally as she is, has strengthened us too. So just having more of a like-minded path that we want to go on, instead of, you know, we have a lot of similar goals, but then mine physically we're over here and hers are over, over here. So we just kind of really now have a well-rounded relationship where we're going after the same things together.
Do you run now? I mean, do you run often, or is that something you don't really do
Off
a lot
and
of?
on. I still get pain, not muscle soreness. It still hurts, but it's something that I can do now.
Yeah.
It's not, well, I can't run. It's
Can
like,
you ride a bike?
Yeah, I
you
rode.
can
I
ride a
bought
bike.
it. So now,
Well, I guess you're riding your road bike.
once we moved to Vegas, so I sold my road bike, all my gear, everything when we moved.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just bought a road bike 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Cool.
So I've been riding the Red Rock Loop and climbing, and I actually signed up for Tour de Summerlin in April. So
Awesome.
I'm going to race that race. Originally, I was like, I'm going to do the 40 mile, and then this 2 days ago, we were getting ready for the day, and I said, you know what? They have an 80 mile.
I was like, 40's not enough.
I used to ride 75. Why not go for something I've never done and do 80?
Well,
I think
he's
I
been
could do
going
80.
out, and he's like, I feel better than I ever did when I was
on
riding before.
On
So I
Strava,
can totally
you
do
get
this.
you get your rewards on Strava, and I'm like hitting PRs on the route that I used to ride back in 2016 after riding for
You got that
a
old
year.
man endurance coming in, man.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
I love it, man. I the
It's a
other
real
day,
thing.
the other day
he
I
just hit
seen
40, so
Right.
I seen a guy. I was coming down the hill, and he was coming up. So I spotted him probably a good 3/4 of a mile. I'm like, when I turn and come back, I'm gonna bring this guy back to me. And I just put my head down and I look up, and I see him, and I brought him right to me, and I dropped him on the rest of the climb. And I was like, man, I've been off the couch,
Heck yeah.
and I just dropped a guy that probably rides all the time. So, those little
Sweet.
things. So yeah, I've been road biking again, and built. Now I have a whole nother way of training because I want to, cut some body fat and lighten up a little bit for the race, and kind of go back to some of my old training. That just it's lit a fire to keep seeing what else can I do.
Man, that's awesome. I love road biking. I just sold my road bike, but just because I don't have time to do everything. But I love it. I mountain bike once in a while, but. Yeah, road biking is just, there's something about it. You know?
I love it. Yeah.
Cardio is the one thing you have to force me to do. Like,
Not your thing, huh?
I hate. I do it because I have to, and it's good for me. But I hate cardio.
I'm the same way. That's why I wear a vest. I wear a weighted vest. If I have to run, I'm not going to do it without a vest because I don't want to run 10 miles. I'd rather do it with a vest and run 3 or 4.
I like the feel of the iron on my back. That's what I like.
I tell you, man, you get in that certain mode though, in that certain shape, and it feels good once you're there. To get there does suck.
It's hard.
I mean, you don't like cardio when you don't do it, but
it
if you can,
hurts.
But
once you get over that hill where you start ticking a little better each time you go out, it actually, for me, it's fun.
It's awesome.
It's seeing your split times and the end of the ride when you go on to your Strava and you see like this split was faster than you've gone and you got work to do here, or that kind of stuff is fun for me.
You know what's cool for me to have you guys here today and hear you talking about this. When we talk about your past, and there's an energy in the room. I don't know if people will be able to feel it on the podcast. I'm sure somewhat, right? Not as much as we feel it here today. And then you talking about your achievement and how you feel and your relationship, and now just the energy in the room changes. The look on your faces change. And I think it's that feeling of hope, that everybody's always looking for. It's like, what is that spark? And if you feed that flame, it ends up changing your life, right?
Yeah.
And in your guys' case, not just yours, but also your sons,
Yeah.
right?
Very much so.
And then you're inspiring a lot of people around you, which is cool. I'm sure on Instagram you get
Yeah.
a
He gets
ton of
messages all the time.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. A lot of my old race buddies that kind of did the same, and they got on with their life after racing, and got the dad bod themselves and the bad habits, and they're busy with whatever and all the excuses that I made, and they'll say, "Hey, man, you inspired me to get back in the gym for the first time," or first time I've ran in 15 years, or a lot of those things, or hey, how did you do these things? It actually inspired me to start helping some people.
awesome.
I don't like excuses, especially now after I've come from where I came with all the habits and the overweight, and now I did it again. I got myself in great shape again. I wasn't sure if I wanted to take on like actual clients and have them pay for my service, because I can be really hard, to work with. We butt heads sometimes because
You cannot be my coach.
no, and that's
I'm glad to hear that, because I can't be my wife's coach either. She's like, no, don't even go there.
Yeah.
Don't even try.
So she has her coach because we can't do that together.
Yeah.
It would cause too much conflict, but you have to recognize that.
Yeah.
But I think now I hopefully I can learn myself how to be a coach and teach, because it's one thing to do it yourself because you're your own coach and you know how to talk to yourself.
Yeah.
But to now try to duplicate myself and help others achieve goals.
Yeah.
I think he can
of
do it.
their
He's got
own.
such a great personality to be a coach.
When I stopped racing, I would coach kids. Like the dads would ask me to come to the track and like teach the kids body position and style and like all that kind of stuff and what lines. And so I have that coaching in me. I love coaching my son, playing baseball. I actually don't know a whole lot about baseball, and I started learning and figuring out the game at a basic level so I can help him.
You're coaching him with BMX, too.
Teaching them body position and riding. So I always love sharing my knowledge. Probably coming up in February, I'm going to release some stuff on my Instagram to help, just a few. I'm not going to go crazy, but if you're serious and they wanted to approach, me and get in shape, or at least pick my brain and, what did I do? And I can help, that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah.
man.
So who knows where that's going to go?
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun, another journey. Then
Right.
it inspires me, because if I'm telling you, hey, you got to do this, this, and
I'm
this,
doing it too.
I better do it too and showcase it.
Hold you
myself.
accountable
So,
as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's good. You guys have taught us a lot today. I mean, a lot of good life lessons. I mean, just the life you guys are living and have lived is helping a lot of people. It's going to help a lot of people as they hear this. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you
sharing
guys
your
having us
story.
on. Like it was when Jeff said, "Hey, you want to come on?" I was like, "Really? I'm doing something that extraordinary, to actually be
Absolutely.
invited on." So I appreciate you guys inviting us on and having Kayla with us too.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's fun.
It's a package. And we do everything together.
We're far from perfect, but we're just constantly trying to improve.
Try to
and
get better.
Move forward.
We love that, because that really is when we started doing this podcast, it's kind of morphed into, what it is today. And you guys, I think, are the epitome of what our brand is, right? Living a solid life and, having a solid marriage and now.
Well, you guys doing this has inspired us. And actually, Jeff, before you started this, what I forgot to mention was you did a podcast with someone that had invited you on or something. I saw it on your Instagram, and I said, it was the first day that Kayla couldn't make it to one of Landon's practices. And so I just put headphones in and listened to it. And that was the very first step. So you going on that podcast and then starting this podcast with Brandon was like those first couple steps. That was like, okay, I always got a lot out of you when an appointment would blow out or something, and I'd come to the office because I knew, you had your op night or a training night or something, and then watching videos from you on, Primerica and online or whatever. I seeing you guys and re-sparking like what you made me feel when we were in the office grinding, together and stuff. So
you and Kelsey were always such a huge part of like inspiring us. And then you and Kelsey were such a huge part of our lives and always making us want to be better and do better. Yeah. So like we have you guys to thank
this
for
day, you're the
so
only non-family member to ever watch our kid.
Wow.
The only non-family member that we've dropped Landon off to and trusted
They were little
to
too.
go out and do a date night and like know that our kid was taken care
Well,
of.
that's humbling. Thank you guys.
Awesome.
We love you.
explicitly.
I'm proud of you, seriously, both
Thank
you
you.
guys, and
Likewise.
I'm so excited for everybody that gets to listen to this podcast because I know you guys are going to change a lot of lives.
Sure hope
Appreciate
so.
it.
You
Even
will.
just one.
Yeah.
It's going to happen a lot. I promise you. We're going to get so much great feedback from today. So
Good.
Awesome.
thank you for coming on.
We're
Thanks for
honored
having
to be
us.
here.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.